What I'm going to do is I'm going to section this onto the handle so I have something nice and round to pull. We'll see how this stuff welds here. Pretty much complete garbage welds.
Pretty good. Hello, darkness, my old friend.
This motherfucker right here is round.
How long is popping? I said, what? She said, yeah. I said, no.
It's breaking.
I'm glad to see.
Yeah!
I said, no, what? Not the day.
Alright, so I have the driver's side, rear brakes all stripped down, and so I have all of the new parts going on, the GK Tech dual caliper brackets, got the driver's side and the passenger side. I got the hardware laid out. This is to bolt the hub back on. These are new bolts for the second pair of brake calipers, with the spacers to space them out properly. And I have the dust shield here, took it off, cleaned it up. And so what I have to do now is match this up and cut out the dust shield where the new caliper goes. I'll just use an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel and then a flap wheel to clean it up. And I went to the auto parts store and I got some new rear rotors and pads.
Looks like the Pep Boys threw up.
Go in the calipers that'll be operated by the foot brake. And I also got some stainless steel brake lines that will go into the regular brake calipers. Right now, there's the inline setup on here. So there's a GK Tech line kit that goes from the master cylinder on the handbrake back and then splits and was connected to the factory brake calipers. And so the old owner just took the original lines off and zip tied them up out of the way. And so a whole bunch of crap got in them, I'm sure, over time. And so I'll disconnect them from here and I'll bleed some of the fluid out and then connect the new stainless steel lines to this caliper, which will be operated by the foot brake. And then we'll switch this line over to the new caliper for the handbrake. And that's how we'll connect everything up. So the next step here is to mark and modify the dust shield, and then we'll get putting everything back together. All right, we have the brake dust shield cut to fit the caliper. Wanted to cut as little out as possible so that it'll still function. Put a little radius on these edges so I don't send myself to the hospital. And so now we are going to get back on this, reinstalling everything.
Yep, that's what time it is.
All right, I'm going to be using some of this Permatex anti-seize. So if I ever have to take any of this back apart, it comes apart a lot easier. This stuff, as a lot of you probably know, is the devil. Once it gets on you, it's hard to get it off of you, but it works really good to ensure that everything is going to come off down the road when you want it to come off, that is. I'm going to tighten them up. Get them all snug first, because you kind of need to suck the hub into the knuckle, in this case into the brake caliper adapter. And so we're going to get them all evenly snug, and then when we go to tighten them, we're going to tighten them like how you would a 4-lug wheel. And we are going to do it in a cross pattern. And then I'm going to grab a torque wrench so we can make sure that we get these all to a nice uniform torque spec. You know, this holds your wheel on when you're going faster than you should be, and certainly don't want this coming loose. See, this is the new hardware for the original caliper. It has the spacer that's the same thickness as the dual caliper bracket, and so once you put that on, the new hardware becomes the same length as the old, and you use the old hardware on the new caliper setup, or you can use the supplied hardware as well. And so now it's time to install the brand new caliper that will be actuated by the handbrake. First, I'm going to put the Hawk HPS pads in it, one of my favorite pads for the back of a car for the ebrake. Cheap, real grippy, good initial bite. When you buy a pair of calipers, there's going to be a passenger and a driver's side. These are going to mount like this onto the bracket, and so you'll see that the bleeder screw is at the top. You don't want it to be at the bottom because air is going to rise in the fluid and you're not going to be able to effectively bleed it. So you got to make sure that the bleeder is at the top. This is where the brake line will go in, and you need the bleeder at the top. So these are the driver's side ones. So first up here, let's load this thing up with some pads. And these are not the right pads. That's awesome.
That's what it is.
Yeah. That really sucks. So the rear end is as far along as I can get it right now. As I said, I ordered the wrong pads for the calipers here, so those are going to be here later today. And then I'm also waiting on some new lug nuts for the wheel spacers. The lug nuts that came with the spacers that were on the car, when you put them in the socket and spun the drill, you could see the cone on the lug nut was kind of wobbling, so they were not machined or cast or whatever correctly. So I got some higher quality shallow lug nuts coming for that. So we'll be waiting on that before we get the car back on the ground and everything. But the dual caliper setup is as far along as I can get it right now. I got the axles back in. I got the caliper that is connected to the foot brakes, all loaded up with new pads, and got a stainless steel line connected to it. It was quite a pain in the ass to get the brake line off the old soft line, dealing with Minnesota rust problems, but we got it taken care of. So we got both sides right to this point, just waiting on those pads, and then we can go and bleed the rear foot brake and then the hydro brake, although we are waiting for a few parts for the actual lever. And then I just have the GK Tech softline kit connected to this. And then for the inside, I ended up just using the Willwood master cylinder that was on there before and turned upside down. I was thinking about doing a hard line, but that was just going to be more work than was necessary. And I got the new handle installed. I'm going to get this thing powder coated or Cerakoted or something eventually, so it's not just raw aluminum. But got that in there for now, just temporarily. I'm waiting on a banjo bolt and banjo adapter. So I'm going to have a banjo like this, but that goes to a barb fitting. And that's just going to be a 1/4-inch barb that goes to a remote brake reservoir fluid. I'm actually using one for a motorcycle. And I'll either mount that over here somewhere, or if we have to, we can route it back and into the center console, either where the vent is that's no longer used, or in the cubby there. And so waiting on those parts, and then we'll be able to bleed the rear of it.
6% of most men, all men, not most men, all men lose their hair by the age of 45.
Awesome.
I started losing mine at the age of 20.
More problems. I sent back the goddamn sliders with the last set of wrong pads that I ordered.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Well, I finally got all the parts to finish up the dual caliper e-brake setup. I was waiting on this little banjo to barb fitting here for the outlet of the Willwood master cylinder. And then I bought a universal little brake fluid reservoir designed really for like motorcycles and stuff like that. And so I have mounted that up here in front of the shifter, and it clears all of the interior pieces and puts it as high as I can get it so that it is above the level of the master cylinder, so it'll actually drain fluid into it as I need it. It's really small, but that should be all I need. It's be really easy to top off. I can just pull the shift bezel up and out and get access to it to top it off if need be. And as you saw earlier, I got the handle all finished. I still want to bring it somewhere and get it Cerakoted or powder coated or something.
I'm just about that action, boss.
Everything fits. The cup holders fit like right here, real nice and snug. And this fits snug to the edge of the center console, but everything fits real nice in there. The reservoir clears the shifter and all the gears. And like I said, it's really easy to get access to. And then I zip tied the cable going to the rear and put a couple of P-clamps on it so that it is as solid as possible. If you let these things just hang out in space, when you go and grab the brake, it'll be a little extra squishy because you'll actually be moving the line. It'll kind of be like a snake and flex up, and so you'll be losing a little bit of the feeling through that. So you want to have these guys as solid as possible. And I got everything under the car snugged up and secured as well. Where there weren't any bolt holes, I just went ahead and used some self-tapping screws. Not the most ideal, but some of the places there's no way to get in and put a nutsert in, and so that's what we had to do. So the e-brake system is now complete and ready to give it a test out. Well, it won't lock the rear up currently. Gets close to doing it, I think, but won't lock them up. I know that the brand new rotors and the pads are going to need to bed themselves and break in. I would have expected it to lock up the tires anyways, but we shall see. We'll make it work. I've just been driving along, as you can see, just slowing the car down with the e-brake, sometimes with the drivetrain engaged, sometimes with the clutch in, just trying to get those pads bedded in. I'm gonna take a left here and go down this road and then see how tight the angle is. Just take a U-turn right here. Doesn't feel like there's any rubbing, so that's good. Now that I have the clutch adjusted and the dead pedal out of the way, everything feels much better.
That's big time.
All of the contact points feel better, even though they haven't changed much besides the clutch, just because the clutch is that much easier to operate. It used to engage right off the floor, which I don't like. I like where it engages just past half travel. Easier for clutch kicks, and it's just what I prefer. And it actually engages a little high, so that's one adjustment I'll make, is to lower the engagement point just a little bit. But everything else feels good. The new e-brake handle, I really like where it is in relation to the steering wheel. Easy to grab. The shifter, I didn't like it at first. It felt a little notchy, but I honestly think that since the clutch was engaging so low, it might not have been fully disengaging. When I drove it home, I ground the gears just a couple of times, and I actually think that was because the clutch engaged so low to the floor, it wasn't completely disengaging it. And so the shift felt a lot more notchy because of that, because it wasn't putting full slack into the transmission, and now it is. And so the shifter feels smoother and less notchy. And I do want to get a little bit taller shift knob on it. I generally like a shift knob maybe about this tall. So I'll shop on eBay there and see if I can find one that fits the bill. I love this style of shape. You can see that the e-brake handle is basically the same shape as the shift knob. It's just a little more elongated, obviously. But if I can find this handle, this e-brake knob, that's just another inch taller, that'll be really nice for me. I like how quiet it is for a VQ. This has the VQ35 HR, the last of the VQ35s, which everyone says is the best. I know nothing about this type of stuff, but I'll take their word for it. And the car has ISR long tube headers that have been Cerakoted, and there's some high flow cats, and then it has the ARK or ARC exhaust on it that has resonators, mufflers, and on the mufflers there's anti-drones. And so not only is this car nice and quiet, which would be nice because it will be my daily driver in the summer, it also doesn't have that VQ trumpet sound that I'm not a big fan of. You see 350Zs and G35s out at the drift events, and they're not very pleasant to listen to. In fact, I'd almost say that they're worse than an LS to listen to. So this thing does not sound like that, and under full throttle, it actually sounds pretty decent. Oh yeah, it locks them up now. It just needed to get bedded in.
That's huge. Beast mode, love, and appreciate that.